Hey y'all. I hope everything is up to par. I was not completely and fully prepared for this, but when the Spirit of the Lord moves, I move with it, which ironically is what we're going to talk about today. Perhaps it's not irony. Excuse me. I lean forward a lot. Anyway, I wanted to talk about getting out of your own way. What many of us do is stand in our own way in different ways, which ultimately they all point to pride. All sin is pride. I spoke recently about that my riches were standing in the way of me hearing from God properly. And I guess this isn't much different from that. But your riches in terms of knowledge, wisdom, things that you've acquired and learned and come to understand on this journey, those things can very much so inhibit your walk with God, because then you become so, it's almost like how the serpent told Eve in the Garden of Eden, that she would be like God. In our minds sometimes, subconsciously, it's almost like we think we're like God, right? Which obviously we cannot be, and consciously we know that we're not. But when we think that we understand things, we try to control things. A good prayer point for this is to ask God, is there anything that you need to let go of? Is there anything you need to walk away from? Is there any way that you're being that you need to be delivered from that is preventing your forward movement and your flow with God? Because like I was saying about being in the algorithm of the Spirit, you want to be able to flow with how God is flowing. He does not always flow in the same direction, although he does not change. And that is why a lot of people say that the Bible contradicts itself. But Ecclesiastes 3 tells us that there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time for peace and there's a time for war. There's a time to laugh and a time to cry. There's a time to plant and there's a time to pluck up. That really kind of let you guys know that we have to be in the flow of God to know when to do a thing. I want to say in the book of Matthew, Jesus used a parable about a man who had sown wheat in the night while everyone slept, an enemy sowed tares. So in the morning when they woke up, his workers asked him, should we pluck up the tares also? And the farmer said, no, let the tares and the wheat grow together, unless when you pluck up the tares, you'll pull up the wheat also. Let them both grow up together and we'll separate them at harvest time. I don't know where that came from. I know that that's for somebody, because I feel the Holy Spirit when I said that. That's for somebody. But we do want to be prayerful in this walk to make sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and, take off running. If you were walking your kid into a candy store, they took off running ahead of you. And, you need them to stay with you. So let's not go taking off running ahead of God. Let's stay with God. Let's stay in the flow of God. And that really is the whole point of everything that I wanted to say, is to be prayerful that we stay in the algorithm of the Spirit. And that will break that spirit of stagnation, that feeling like you're stuck in the same spot, that feeling like you're, stuck in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Once you begin to move with the algorithm of the Spirit, there's no such thing as stuck. There's a such thing as waiting. There's a such thing as, tarrying. There's a such thing as, awaiting an appointed time. But there's no such thing as stagnation when you're in the flow of the Spirit. And also, like I said, this also applies to being able to hear from God, because if you know so much, sometimes, God will let you bump your head. If you know so much and you just going ahead of God. I recently had a situation where I just felt like I just knew that this was not the thing to do, but I felt so much in my spirit that this is what God wanted me to do, that I went ahead and did the thing. And, I'm glad that I did, and it worked out in my favor ultimately. So I love y'all so much. I think that's pretty much the gist of this message.